So I'm Drew Steverson. I'm Director of Payroll for Advocate Atrium Health in the Georgia-Atlanta markets. And I have been doing this for almost 30 years, but I've been with Atrium for I was a consultant at first, and then they hired me on. They stole me from my consulting firm. I know that's bad. But anyway, I've been with them for about 5 years, 1 year as a director. And this is my partner in crime.
Okay. My name is Venkatesh Gurusamy. I worked in People's Law and Oracle as a consultant, and I moved into consulting from a global payroll to a North American payroll. So for the last 10 years, I was looking at only North American payroll. Before that, I implemented global payroll for many organizations. So far, I visited 36 countries only. So a lot of things to knock it out, but still, I'm there. I'm tired. So I just stepped down and I joined as a consultant with the New Resources Consulting. And I'm doing this payroll for the last 25 years. Okay, so.
And let me just say, GV and NRC has been, just absolutely key in successful conversions. And GV, how long have you been working with us as a client?
It's 8 years with the.
8 years.
Started with the Wake Forest, that's the first one, and now we've grown up with so many entities adding up. And last year is our 4th implementation of cloud.
Yes.
So first Atrium Healthcare went in live with Scotland and Navicent and Wake Forest, and then Floyd last year by this time.
Yes, and he was a lifesaver. So,
okay.
So today we're going to talk about some pre-conversion tasks, what you need to think of before you're going into a conversion, and there's a lot to think about, especially during your discovery phase. Part of that discovery should be understanding the terminology between your legacy system and the system that you're going to. That's also key. We came from ADP, and the language in ADP and the language in Oracle, it's night and day. So you really need to understand that. We're going to talk about conversion tasks, lessons learned, and we have plenty of those. And then we'll get through questions and answers. Okay, so pre-conversion task. Evaluate the tools available in the legacy system. Understand the format required for target system and translate between the two systems. So for us, we had a pretty robust reporting tool from ADP. So we were able to get the information that we needed to a degree because we converted mid-quarter. And ADP doesn't like to give you mid-quarter information. You either get quarter information or year-end. So that was a lot of, getting creative with how we could pull that information and how we could get it into Oracle. I think you can go to the next slide. Yep. Data attributes, meaning, data mapping, templates for each business object, and system backup timeline. GV, did I steal that? That was yours.
Yeah, it's mine. Okay.
See,
so
this is where I'm going to go wrong.
Okay. So the data attributes meaning, right? When you're in a PeopleSoft, right, basically goes with only job data. That's the only data we know because everything comes from there. From a payroll perspective, we don't look at others. I know for a tax and the stuff we look at it, but main of our data comes from a job record. But when it goes to Oracle, there are a lot of different data has to come from different models to make our payroll to be in a streamlined one conversion. Because we are not only converting our payroll data, but the benefits data, all of the data is also required to make sure that your 401k or social security will have all of an impact. So just try to understand the mapping. And again, sometimes, right, when you have a right tool, try to extract the data in the format where Oracle requires. Otherwise, when you do something from one format to another format, you will miss some data in between. which will you got up after some time only. So make sure that your tool, whatever your tool you are choosing, try to extract the data in the target format. I know sometimes, your another point to consider is, what are the systems you are going to use up for your extracting or loading into a target system. Make sure you have the same backup line, because the payroll, if you do have a different data, you will never identify what are those issues are. For example, you have your legacy system in April month and your target is in a different month payroll, then you are not going to get apples and apples. I'm sure at the first time, we don't want to compare apples and apples, but at least I don't want to compare with something else. Totally different things, okay? Then I would suggest, or we would suggest, to get some Oracle demo and training before getting into conversion, because that will help you to understand the terminologies or what the language is used in the new target system. I'm sure you are all familiar with your legacy system. That's why your day to day you are hearing the same again and again. But if you go to the training or a demo, or if you get some part for a demo or something like that, then you used to hear the names or the terminologies even before you're getting into a pre-meeting or a requirement gathering. That helps a lot.
Yeah, I totally agree. When we started our conversion, I'm just going to tack on, if you don't mind. When we started our conversion, we kept asking, well, what does this mean? Or how is this going to work? And what are you referring to when you say this, that, and the other in Oracle? Because it's not our typical payroll speak from our legacy system. So, we were told, well, we'll train later. And I think it's just key in the discovery process, pre-conversion, to start understanding Oracle terminology. So you're not going in there blind.
And then from a payroll perspective, the element setup will come in the next phase, or that will be in the second phase of your conversion, or that's what we talk about more about the setup of how the elements are configured. Believe me, you need that information for the conversion. Otherwise, you don't know what year-to-date accumulator to populate, or you don't know what your custom balance is required. So please spend some time to get the names of what are the different types of configuration or classification used in Oracle. Okay, now we can talk about terminologies.
Okay, so it's a little bit of what we just mentioned here. Employee ID, employee record. There's certain things in your, in your legacy system that are called, it may be employee ID, and that's it. And under that employee record, you may have several assignments. I don't know how
PeopleSoft is implied in record. Yep.
Okay. Understand that in Oracle, there are several different things. There's going to be your person number, there's going to be an assignment number, payroll relationship number, and your consultants may constantly refer to these things, and you're going to be like, what are you talking about? They have an employee ID. Well, you might have somebody that has 2 job assignments, and they're going to have one number. And then for like 2 assignments, they might have a -1 or a -2, depending on the circumstances.
Yeah, here the key is that person number always, and you in PeopleSoft, yes, it's a person ID, but here that's a person number, that's fine. But when it goes to multiple job, we have the same one, but the employee record number, right? 1 or 2, something like that. But here the assignment of the multiple jobs goes by -2. Which again always starts with the character E, that means an employee. P means pending workers. C means contingents 1. So you know what's that. And after that, wherever in PeopleSoft, we always have that person ID mapped to your payroll. That's all. But here there is a payroll relationship number, which doesn't start with any characters. It starts with either the number or with the -1, -2 onwards. The person number starts with just the numbers or whatever the characters you are starting with, and then assignment number starts with E, and it starts always with the -2. And your payroll relationship just remains as a person ID if they have only one payroll relationship. If they have a multiple relationship, then it starts with the -1. Okay, why I'm saying this -1, -2? What is the -1 is not available in the assignment number? Those much of confusion will come. So be aware of those different numbers used in the system. And I'm not sure you have your employment term number is there or not. Are using it. So there is one more term number is there.
Yeah.
So be aware of those, all these different numbers.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Especially when they have terminations.
Yes.
That's right.
Yep.
Or the transferring from one region
Global
to
transfer.
another. The other thing that I wanted to mention is later on, of course, I didn't know this at the time, but it is, the assignment number is key for your uploads. All uploads are going to take your assignment number. So that's just something to remember.
Yes. So again, in PeopleSoft, you just have multiple jobs, and here they call it as multiple assignments. And there it goes by employee record number. Here it goes by the same E and -2, -3, -4 like that. So once you terminated, you just start with the new numbers, and some of your conversion has to be loaded by assignment. If you have a different FEN and if you have different W2s, then you should be very careful about assignment number along with your payroll relationship number. Okay, like for example, the benefits deductions goes by payroll relationship number. You should be very careful on loading those data because you don't see that initially, but after 2 months of payroll, you'll see, sometimes that your social security max out or your 401k limit max out. Then we will see, this is not stopping the deduction. Why? Because we didn't load the right data into right assignment number or the payroll relationship number. So be cautious on those numbers when you load the data.
For our reports that we're working on now, just internal custom, we'll
Yeah.
have person ID, assignment, and then the payroll ID. Even if it has nothing to do with payroll,
Included on everything.
Yes, please. See, that's what I said, right? Going back to the first slide, convert the data where the target system is expecting. We can extract the data, that's not a problem, but the challenge is include additional feeds that make sense for the target system. Even though in your system it doesn't have it, try to put some data on it and use some temporary tables to populate it automatically so that you don't need to worry about it in the later state. Again, this is an example, like person number, and then if you look at that one person having a multiple relationship, E-2, -3, just starts with E. So it's all coming in there. And again, in PeopleSoft, as long as that one payroll relationship there is a one payroll relationship, it's mapped directly, but here it goes by, if you're on a bi-weekly payroll definition, you have a different payroll relationship number. If you have multiple job and other assignment as a salary, as in a monthly one or hourly or non-exempt, something exempt and non-exempt, please be very careful on what is their relationship. Okay, because the reason why I'm saying this is maybe one of your assignment they got paid in current year and they terminated and they moved into a new assignment. We all focus on the active people or active teammates, but when you are ending up in the year end, this employee W2 is not generated because we didn't convert it at all. Because he may got one payment, not a bonus or something, just one payment paid in this year, whatever the year are converting. After that, he may not be active. He may terminate it, but he needs a W2 from the system because otherwise you have to make sure that the other system is also available to generate your W2. Yeah, that's one thing.
You know what? You mentioned W-2s. Can I jump on there? If you're going through a mid-year conversion, like for example, have you guys decided that you're going to do 2 W-2s or combine them on one for this year?
Yeah.
Are we using ADP?
So then one W2.
You're using ADP, so you can do one. Okay. I was going to say that's especially important for when you're loading your balances into Oracle and making sure that ADP, for example, for us, it was making sure ADP didn't process those W-2s, and then Oracle, we do use ADP as well, but we were wanting to make sure that there weren't 2 W-2s generated. So you might just, maybe check back with ADP.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, what happens is if you have ADP and are you moving your tax service at all, or are you keeping the exact same tax service? Okay.
This is the first time they're doing
Okay.
W-2s for us.
So okay. So who was doing your tax filing before?
We were doing it in-house.
Oh,
In-house.
in-house.
Okay.
Okay. So you just have to make sure, be very cognizant of your balances, that all of your balances are going to ADP so that they'll have everything from now until, I believe you said, what did you say, April, that you were going live? October.
Okay, the
That's
one
right.
thing I do want to add the point with ADP is, even though you are still in ADP, when you move into cloud, you are going to get a different company ID in ADP.
Yes.
Okay, so that's a two different system. I know it's all ADP, but you have to extract your historical data and move those company IDs into new company IDs. Then only you will be able to generate one W-2 out of this new company ID.
And we have, Atrium has ADP full tax and garnishment. So if you guys want to reach out to me with any questions
Yes.
or things I learned from going live with that, feel free to.
And you mentioned you were bringing over, well, you had to do W-2s for terminated employees.
Yeah.
How far back did you go with your data?
So for the ADP, right, we just went for the last year only, because in the middle of this, so you are converting 23, right? This year, if any employee who got payment in this current year, convert
Yeah.
them.
That's what we did in 22. We took
Yeah.
anybody who'd received a payment in 22 to make it easy.
See, that is not only for W-2. In later states, sometimes if they have to pay the quarterly bonus or incentive, then you don't have the data. Yes. They may have some earnings, or sometimes you have to pay if there's some discrepancy come through, and if the employee comes back and say, I still you owe some hours for me, then you need to make sure that your underlying data has to be there. And it's very uncommon, but at least you have the data to immediately pay them out, or during your incentives, which can be paid in a quarterly or once in a while if they pay. You have to have this all the data relationship maintained. Otherwise, you have to do the conversion. Again, you have to go through all those different things and get it enabled. Okay. Right. Dates.
Okay.
Favorite topic.
Cloud dates. Okay. So the date, Oracle is very date specific. GV, would you agree with me on
Yes.
that? So if you have, specific date, for example, one thing that we ran into, and I don't want to get ahead to lessons learned, but it ties in. One thing that we ran into is the effective date we put in since we went mid-year for HSA, FSA, and things like that. It didn't calculate correctly per pay period because we used kind of the date system from the legacy system. And so it was saying, oh, well, you still have, whatever it was, 20 pay periods left. No, that wasn't necessarily true. We only had, 19, okay? And so everybody was off, and we were trying to figure out what was the problem. It was the date problem, the effective dating of those HSAs and FSAs. Be really careful about that. So let's see.
Yeah, and I'm sorry, I just added.
No, that's okay. Go
The
ahead.
other dates, right? In PeopleSoft, you have just only an effective date in the payroll, right? Or whether the last termination date or effective date, status active or ALPS. That's all. You want to worry about. The payroll will automatically pick it up and process it. But here, within the payroll relationship, there are different dates, like a first standard earnings date, first standard processing date, last standard processing date, last standard process date, and final close date. Okay, these dates are very important. And for example, just giving an example, like, anything you want to stop it when the employee got terminated, like for example, your regular pay, hourly pay, or a salaried pay, then it goes with your last standard processing date. Okay, for example, the final close date. That means if you put a date on it, let's say the employee got terminated, and you immediately put the final close date, the next pay period you can't find and load the data because it says, I'm done with this employee, So final, I'm done. I'm not doing anything on this current year. And please don't populate that field unless for some time, because you don't know when you are going to do adjustment. Even, yes.
You're right.
Because, I just believe it or not, just keep it until the year end. Everybody you converted, let's keep the date open.
And
So what you guys did you leave the final close date
For-
open until the end of the year?
We did for the first year, we did until we generated all the W-2s, because I'm sure, even though we have all the lessons learned, there'll be something will come up on January. Oh, this employee is not showing up, or this total is not correct.
yes,
So you are going to do this correction on the next year starting. Okay. So please keep that open so that you have an adjustment then, because you cannot do a balance adjustments if you close the date.
and
You can open it, but how many people you are going to open it? And I'm not
Yeah.
sure who is going to maintain those data, okay? Because the termination comes from a payroll team or from a managers. Then there are some scripts which will automatically populate, which it's good, but first year I won't recommend to.
that was to wake you guys up in case you're
sorry.
falling asleep after lunch.
Well, I'm awake.
Okay.
Sorry, I know. Just make sure we are all right.
It was God.
I'm a little nervous.
First year post conversion, but even regular
Oh,
processing.
yeah,
What's the
yes.
recommended?
Okay, regular processing depends upon your quarterly bonus is there or not. I will recommend, and don't populate the final close immediately after termination. Depends upon your 90 days or 120 days. Run a script which will automatically populate it.
So this is kind of going back to what y'all said initially.
Initially,
Really thinking about your practices and business processes
Yes.
that you're using that are going to influence that.
yes.
Yeah.
So the second, go ahead, sorry.
One thing to add on that, so what's gonna, if they pay out bonuses
Let me-
in like April, May the next year, and some of those are for terminated employees, so we
Yes.
had to look at their business
Right.
processes to make sure that they're final closing more in like an April, May time period. So it really goes back to evaluating your
Yes.
business to determine when to final close it.
Yes. Yeah.
That's a very
Yes.
good point.
Yes, the question is, when do you want to populate the final close date? The first year, when you're doing conversion, make it available for next year till you generate the W-2s. Okay, after that, discuss with the business partners, what is your quarterly incentives coming in, even though, let's say, for example, I'm terminated, I'm some employee in the month of May, and if your quarter ends in June, please keep it open till June. Or if it goes to next September, so next couple of months, then keep it open for 2 more months. Okay. In generally, I'm sure, it also depends upon how you are allowing the timekeeping system to get the data back. Right? They may go and do a correction on it, or a PTO correction, because how do you want to pay out some of the PTOs? What is your policy on that? Are you paying out immediately? Yes. If it's the California employee, yes, we have to pay them immediately. But for some other reason, we can pay out in the next period. So please make sure that all the other business processes are considered to populate that final close date. Okay, thank you. So different things I'm just showing up in benefit service date, company seniority date, all this stuff. See, this is what I'm talking about. Last standard earnings, last process date, processing date, all this stuff. Okay.
If I could just share, one of the things I'm picking up here is, because I think at Atlantic, the final close date has been given to the HR
Yes.
team to be the owner of
Yes.
that. But the impact is greater to payroll
Yes.
than it is to HR. And so,
Right, because you might have-
that's my note I'm taking back when I go back home.
Right. And I
That's
think
my,
the point is you might have payments past, right?
Yeah.
Payments past the last process
because
date.
payroll's leaving it to HR to make the decision
Right.
when to populate the final close date. And I
Right.
think it should be the other way around.
Could be,
knowing-
there could be several
Yes.
scenarios
Yes.
in which you're going to pay them down the road.
Yeah.
See here, in giving an example, in Atrium and different markets, we have a data management team, which they populate some of the data in a frequent basis. So have them all discussed and agreed upon some date. I'm sure even if there are some exceptions which you can go and open it and immediately, because these things are coming from, I'm not sure you are using the talent from Oracle also.
Yes.
So then, or the second thing is who is either the manager can initiate the terminate action,
Right.
right? It all depends upon how do you the rules is going to be on the final close date. So sometimes you have access.
90 days.
Okay, 90 days or 100 days. But 90 days doesn't true because when you are in the last quarter period,
Right.
you can't do 90 days.
That's exactly what's going on. In
Yeah.
90
Right.
90 days works out great in January.
Yes, not so good in February or March. Yes.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, I get it.
yeah. And normally we run a report in current world, we run a report and then we circulate it with the team saying that, okay, everything looks good. Then we have an HTL to load the data.
Yeah.
So, no, yes, one of the things is how far we can accumulate the data. But anyway, it's one data or not. But if you accumulate the data, we can run a HTL to populate in one second. Once in whatever the frequency we decide with.
Now, to just conversation, when you're doing W-2 adjustments,
Hmm?
do you need to have that close date not there?
Not there,
W-2
yes.
adjustment.
To adjustment.
That's a takeaway from me too. Did you guys hear that? Can you
Yes,
repeat that again?
and you might
'Cause
want
you
to.
got the mic.
Yeah, okay.
Just
Yes,
repeat that again
yes.
for me.
You might want to leave that last date, last process date blank. And I
The
think
final close date.
the final close date. And the reason is because I can promise you will have balance adjustments if you're converting mid-year, or as our poor souls did mid-quarter, or
See,
well, you're going to have balance adjustments because you'll find different, you'll find that maybe this balance didn't transfer, or there's some kind of issue with
components.
it. Some components in which you'll have to adjust. So
See, if you put the balance, the final close date, right? Let's say, for example, if the employee got terminated in February and you put the final close date in March, then your HDL for this employee alone, you have to be that the balance adjustment date, right? Let's say, for example, you have 1,000 employees to be balance adjustment. You forgot one element to be converted from your legacy system to your new system. Okay, out of 10,000 employees, 9,000 are active. You can thousands are inactive, right? You put the final close date. Then what you have to do, you have to use two different HTL. Because those 1,000 employees, if you put, let's say, terminated in March, and if you put a conversion date as a 12/1 or whatever, whenever you find, this will throw out in your HTL.
Sure.
Because they are not active.
They're not active.
But you can put them for 1/1/2023, it will work. Then you have to populate the different dates within the template. That will be more work. It will work, right? And
Blank, I hear you loud and clear. Julie.
Yes, sir.
Leave it blank.
Yes, because here and you already have buried under so many
That's
things.
painful. What you
Yep.
just said is painful.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
So 2H.
well, it'll be less painful if
You fix it.
but if you leave it blank, it's going to be less painful,
Less painful.
and your HDL
Yes,
loader will
and
work.
yes, it's going to pick up in your payroll processing. That's fine. The first step. No, first step. Okay. The only thing, other thing you are going to see an impact is you have active employees is 10,000, but you have terminated as 5,000 employees. I'm giving an example. Then the total count for the first calculation step is it's going to show 15,000. That's okay. Now you will be, oh, I have only 10,000 employees. Why it's showing for 15,000 employees? That's okay. 5,000 it picked up and just leave it. And only in the first step it will pick up all these employees. From all the other downstream process, it won't pick up all the other remaining 5,000. Okay, then you will get exactly the number. I'm sure you will go through your archive, in your prepayment, it will show exactly 10,000. The first step only, it's going to take 15,000. That's okay. Because you're going live in October. Just leave it for 3 months. That's okay.
That's right.
Okay?
Thank you so much.
No problem.
I appreciate that.
Yeah.
Okay, FLSA status. Don't we love this?
It's a love topic.
Yes. Okay, so the FLSA status is, of course, very, very important because it's going to determine whether an employee is eligible for the RROP, regular rate of pay adjustment. So you'll have someone as non-exempt or exempt as an example, but you want to pay close attention to that because it will impact their pay. So anything that impacts pay, we want to take.
And one more thing I just
Yes.
want to add in the FLSA status. In PeopleSoft, you have an option to override the FLSA status at the job level. Okay, between job data level, you can override it, but you cannot do it in cloud.
No.
So your job code has to be set up for non-exempt and your exempt, two different job codes.
That's a very good point. It's all based on the job
code.
and you'll have to
You
create
cannot
a separate
share.
one.
Yeah, you cannot share that exempt and non-exempt job code at all.
Yeah.
So in PeopleSoft, we use one job code, but in job data page, you just click it, override with the non-exempt or exempt status.
Right.
But here it doesn't go that way.
That was another example from our legacy system. We could it was by person, so we could change it, exempt, non-exempt, whatever category they fell into. Didn't actually matter what their job code was. And then now we've created more job codes because we have different situations where one might have non-exempt and exempt. So kind of a job code A and a job code B. Tax information. Okay, I'm gonna be really transparent here. This one, threw me for a loop because, of course, as we all know in payroll, they changed the W-2 or W-4 form, and I like to call it a mini tax return now. It's used to be so simple, right? Okay, so it is so crucial that in your legacy system, you make sure you're pulling two separate categories, one for prior to 2020 and one for post 2020. That was really important. So I made sure I pulled the effective date for the last W-4 change. And the reason it's important is because when you load it in Oracle, there is special coding that is really specific to the old W-4 form and the new W-4 form. And during testing, I have to say, this was like an aha moment where I was like, oh, okay.
Just an aha.
It was an aha moment, yes. Or a, oh my God, I need to redo my work. So I highly recommend making sure you pay attention to that effective date and separate the two categories. And here's a screenshot here, but remember the days when it used to be so easy and it was single and zero and whatever. It's not that easy now. But from the teammate perspective, it's a very seamless process for them to change their W-4, the current W-4.
Okay, to add that point, right? Your translation value from your legacy to cloud, these three have different values. So in your conversion also, depends upon what is the W-4 latest in your system. You have to populate different values in other fields. So it's not easy to fix it again, and you will come to know only by the first payroll.
We had our first payroll, and it was June 10th.
And
And
remember the
Yeah,
date.
because it's birthday.
it's my birthday.
Oh.
Heck yeah, I remember the date.
I'm sorry about that.
And this
Like,
year I
wow,
flew
thinking,
into
really
Vegas.
Remember the date.
Yes.
Okay.
But yeah, it was a fun birthday. Anyway, what we found when we ran the payroll is, as I was comparing, sort of the old register to the new register and seeing our taxes looking the same, is everything netting out to the same, I found that I had a few tax issues where the folks had different tax amounts than they did in the legacy system. And the reason is this coding that GV's talking about right here. And it took us a little while to figure out why it wasn't calculating correctly, but that was ultimately the issue. And the other issue that we found was some of the other balances, for example, our gross year to date, which we'll talk about a little bit later, but those balances for one of the quarters weren't initialized. So the system was looking at the person's pay and going, okay, according to the Circular E, we're going to take more or less depending on how it happened. So those are the two things I would pay attention to is, did your gross pay get initialized and loaded correctly. And also, are you sure you captured it with the right coding depending on the year that they set up their W-4?
So again, we are going to talk about how elements classifications is going to impact, because the primary and the secondary classification drives most of your functionality in the payroll system. Pre-tax, post-tax, bonuses, benefits eligible, benefits not eligible, like a 401k deduction. Suppose, let's say, now why this bonus is not taking into consideration for a 401k or retirement one, then your secondary classification may be wrong. So please try to understand what classification is required to make sure that, yes, we are not the team who wants which elements is going to impact the retirement calculations. So you need to pull the benefits team to make sure that these are the things you should be aware of it, because as I said, right, sometimes one bonus code will hit the limit. Then it won't get deducted. But unfortunately, that is not eligible means that employees' retirement will not deduct. So make sure you involve the benefits team to make sure that all the secondary classifications are correct.
Right. We had some codes that we had, or used to refer to them as codes, but elements now in Oracle Cloud. But we had them set up, and a couple of them we had to, and this was during testing, thankfully, but we saw that they weren't eligible for 401k, or they were not set up pre-tax, and they should have been pre-tax. So those are some of the things in testing, really, take it from start to finish.
Yes.
Make sure that it's gross, that your pre-taxes are all subtracting from that gross, and everything's working correctly.
The reason, for one more reason, is if the secondary classification is wrong, you cannot use that element again. You have to create a new element.
Say that again.
Let's say secondary classification is wrong. You cannot.
There we go again. I'm awake.
Wake up.
You cannot use the same element again. I'm sorry. You cannot use the same element code again. Then you have to convert one more element. Take a new element. Like, you have to start again with this new element code again. Creating all the new elements, and you have to make sure that all the downstream system has it, and your standard templates capturing the data is also correct, and your custom balance is correct. It's a nightmare. Okay.
Is this equivalent to special accumulator?
Yes, special accumulator is the third step, but this secondary classification derives which balance to populate it, pre-tax balances, because in W2 there are a whole different set of accumulators or balances mapped. It's not your individual elements are mapped. Based upon your classification, some of your W2 boxes data will be populated.
And that is something that with us, we, during our W2 review, found that some of them weren't
especially
mapped to the right
those that
box.
are capping out.
Yes.
Those that are capping
Yes.
out at 26.5
Capping out,
or
yeah.
28, whatever.
Right,
Mhm.
right,
And are contributing.
Yes.
That cap out.
Right.
Maximum will not populate the W2.
Yes.
right, exactly.
And,
The W2 mapping is really important of the elements. Yeah.
and when you create an element in Oracle Cloud, it automatically creates a number of delivered or seeded elements automatically. Like, for example, in PeopleSoft, we have one element name which will be used in everywhere. In if you go to your PS balance pay table or PS earn deduction or PS whatever your paycheck table, you join, you will get this name. But that's earnings results is there, earnings calculator is there, earnings distributor is there, and for the deduction it's a different thing. So when you use in report, it's just not the element name. You have to understand what are the different types of elements automatically created by the seeded process that should be used in your reports.
And who owns element creation?
Okay.
Well, that's
I'm
a
asking all
complex.
the good questions.
That's
today,
a
girl.
complex for
I know.
Atrium. It's a complex question. Now, payroll typically, initializes a request for a new element, and then we go through our IAS or IT department for the setup.
Okay.
But we have to work in conjunction now. This is very
With
important
benefits and all
with
that.
benefits,
Right.
and sometimes benefits will be the one requesting the element.
Yeah.
But it kind of goes through me, and then I farm it out to IAS to do. But one thing that's really important is make sure that you are partnering with your accounting side of the house,
Yes.
because you will need to make sure that costing is correct. Otherwise, if you overlook the costing piece of it, you're going to find that every payroll, those new
Suspense.
dollars are going into the suspense account. So we just kind of created a little form of sorts that says, is this 401k eligible? Is this a benefit or a deduction? Blah, blah, blah. If this is an element, we'll go over all the criteria GV just mentioned. And then the last and most important piece is give us the accounting segments. And the accounting should be in charge of that. You shouldn't be, you're not in payroll guessing where it should go. Yeah.
And again, IT can also help us. And again, as a payroll business users, also we can configure those, because it's a set of questionnaire will be asked by the system to configure the elements. It's easy, but you should be very careful about what are the things which we talked about. Like for example, what is that 3 dates we talked about, right? First, the standard earnings date, last, the processing date. That has to be defined in your element creation level.
Mm-hmm.
So I would say, even though the questionnaires look simple, but some of these values cannot be changed after you load a data. You have to create another element altogether.
Mm-hmm.
So go through the questionnaire. I know the payroll team can do it. Yes, they can do it. I would say it's a collaborative effort. Sometimes you need the IT team because you need to migrate this definition from one instance to other instance.
And ours goes through approval process,
process.
When we migrate that through IAS,
Yes.
we have an approval process.
And again, so a lot of things like, benefits team has to be involved, GL team has to be involved, all the costing information, because we don't want to recreate everything again in production. If you do some small mistakes, and if you do one payroll, I can't do it, anything. So roll it back, nothing. So be caution. And one more thing, the last one is about the balances, like your special accumulators. The balances which we know about the payroll side, what are the balances you require from it. But consider the other team involvement in creating custom balances for your retirement vendors. What are the feeds you need? For example, if you're using ADP, if you're going to use ADP employment verification, you have to define a whole process.
Mm-hmm.
They don't take it from your W2 or a year-end or a quarter report. They won't take it. You have to have a different setup.
It's a whole new set of accumulators, basically, for employment verification.
Employment verification. Even though our data is there, payroll data is with them, they would say, no, you have to populate different things.
For the integration.
So consider those kind of all your downstream systems, what they want, how they want to report this grouping of elements, create it, because they need those balances for their downstream integrations. But for that, you have to convert the balances also. If you don't have a balance created, you cannot populate it. Okay, so consider those all the downstream balances. If you have a custom balances or custom reporting going to a different system, like a distribution or your project management or your budgeting system or employment verification system, check with them what are the balances they are using.
And we have all those. So it was definitely a consideration during.
Yeah.
Do you do leave of absence?
Yes.
Because the leave of absence balances that.
Yes, it's there, right? So we use the Chronos system for it, but we bring that data. Some entities, Atrium brings the data back into Core Connect. That's a good point, and Wake doesn't do it, but Floyd.
Yeah, well,
does.
Atrium Charlotte, which is one of our larger markets, they actually use the absent management tool, and they do have an integration from Chronos for that, but they have store the accruals in there. Now, the Floyd market, my market. We have them in Chronos. So we have time off request, balances, and it's all real-time accruals. And it comes over in the time file. integrating to Oracle. But kind of we've got different practices across the market, so we're trying to consolidate those.
This is some of those one, like, when you choose the primary classification, depends upon the primary classification, we'll get some secondary classification drop down. Okay, so it depends upon that, so it goes together. Okay, and next one is like, when you create one element, just a regular, it's create 5 different earnings elements. Regular earnings, results, everything, and all the stuff. And also, it creates some formulas which will be used in your calculation process. So it creates 5 different formulas automatically for calculating one single element. And if you want to customize something, then you should be aware of which formula to touch it. Okay, so those also again depends upon your primary and secondary classification. And again, the bottom of the screen, results one, where and all it goes, which accumulators, which balances you want to contribute.
Okay, I know I'm a presenter and I'm not supposed to have questions, but I have a question for
Sure.
you. Okay, so if you create a pre-tax element, let's say dental, when it creates that other element for dental retro, does it automatically make that pre-tax as well?
No, see, again, retros depends upon, there is a questionnaire, right? You have to choose whether you want to have a retro or not, okay? That's a good point, Drew. The reason is, if you don't select the retro, when you create the element, future you cannot add this retro process for that element. You have to start again. So, people will say, oh, this one we don't want to have retro because we always all correct. But our recommendation is create the retro element, but in some step you can delink this retro element for time being. Okay, there's a process where there is a page where you can go and say for this base element, this is a retro element. Delete the retro element in the drop down and retro will not work. But sometime when they come back, oh, we need the retro functionality, then you just go back to the screen and add this retro element. Because as I said, you see that, right? There's a retro element, retro results. This retro element is tied to this base element. So you can delink for a time being. So one of the lessons learned is, yes, choose your retro even though if you are not going to allow retro for time being. I'm sure first 3 months, you say, no, we don't use it. But after 3 months, I need the retro functionality because that employer.
Yeah.
We cannot calculate manually. See, it's a benefits team, right? So you will say, oh, but who is going to calculate manually?
And let me say the retro process was something I was so excited for because in certain systems, I don't know about PeopleSoft, but I know in ADP, there was no functionality really to calculate retro. And specifically when you have hourly employees and you're going back several pay periods, maybe it's a pay increase or pay owed or whatever it is, it's going to calculate all those the FLSA new premiums for you. So there's no manual intervention in there. But you do have to be mindful of the benefits part of the retro process. But we'll get into that a little bit more.
Did I answer your question?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, GB.
Thank you. No problem. So again, about this, talking about again on accumulators. And in PeopleSoft, one single row will have your quarter to date, year to date, all this stuff in one row, okay? But in cloud, dimension itself, 100 dimensions are available. Assignment number level, payroll relationship number level, tax area level, city level, county level. So many different dimensions are there. So please be careful on what dimensions will be used in what reports. Okay, so here I'm just going up. So depends upon your category and feed. It has your month to date, previous year to date, tax unit, inception date, tax year, assignment itself, we have 10 data. So please make sure aware of all this stuff, at least a little bit, so that it will be helpful on your downstream integration reports. Favorite part.
Okay, so terminologies, when you talk about taxable income, and also, when you're talking about gross, subject withholdable, this was one thing that kind of took me a while to get the hang of, because in some of your legacy systems, it might be just Social Security taxable wages. And that's, it's one terminology. But in Oracle Cloud, it's going to have several different fields, as you can see here. The federal's on the left-hand side here, but it'll have fit gross, which actually is gross plus GTL. And those are the things that you have to consider, because in a legacy system, it might be that your gross does not include imputed income. But here, the gross would. So that's where we talk about how terminology is so very important. Subject not withholdable. So that would be, elements that are not fit withholdable. Fit subject withholdable, that's kind of self-explanatory. Fit section 125 reduction, so that would be your pre-tax items that reduce your fit.
Withheld is there, FIT withheld, that's a tax.
Fit withheld is the tax withheld, but the one that got me is the fit reduced subject withholdable. When you talk about a legacy system and you're talking about federal taxable wages, and maybe that's what you call it, is federal taxable wages, here I kind of equated those two fields together, because that fit reduced subject withholdable should equal your federal wages from your legacy system. And that was explained to me in 20 different ways. And then finally, I'm like, oh, okay, so fit taxable is that? Yes, it is. So
because when you extract from PeopleSoft dollar sign, right, they'll think, okay, gross. But the gross includes your imputed earnings.
Mm-hmm.
And again, that is not going to be in your W-2. This is a W-2 one box. Sorry, reduce
Right.
withholdable.
If you're looking to tie out W-2s, you're going to want to tie it out,
Yes.
box 1, with fit reduced subject withholdable. Remember that. And always remember, when you're looking at balances, like when you can go to person results and say you're looking at individual results, if you want to see their gross, you can pull fit gross, but it's going to include GTL. Or I say GTL, but imputed income of any sort. Yeah.
Okay, so the conversion tasks. So again, in PeopleSoft, you go by period, but Oracle only expects by quarter. So please make sure that which quarter you are going in, and make sure you complete that quarter and send the file. Okay, and balance initialization functionality. That's a whole new concept. It's like you running a payroll. Okay, that will initialize all of your balances.
Make sure you do that.
Please get your element list and make sure all of them is populated to the right bucket. Okay, some of the elements you are going to drop it because you are not going to use the same element, but you're going to drop it, but make sure your balance is included on it.
And for you guys going in October, you're going to have a couple of quarters, that one thing that we ran into is maybe one quarter was initialized, but not the second quarter. So when we got to year end, we were like, we can't reconcile this. Where is this number coming from? And then we would drill down and find, okay, second quarter wasn't initialized. Oh my goodness. So make sure that, when you go live, stay up all night and make sure those balance, stay up all night and make sure that everything has been initialized that you need to be initialized, or else the first paycheck, you could have an issue. Say if your Social Security taxable has not been initialized, then Social Security taxes is going to be off, right? And then year end W-2s.
Yes.
That's right.
Because
It
we
won't.
go live and all of a sudden you take a
If
social security out
it's
of my
not,
check again. I'm like, wait a minute.
if it's not initialized, the system's thinking
What happened?
they have zero Social Security with withholding so far this year, and that they're not maxed out. We did have a couple of scenarios like that. So just make sure, please.
Okay. And we talked about our classification impact and what is your custom balances required for the integration of the third-party reports. So please make sure that convert those and create those during your configuration process. Okay. And conversion population, good topic, right? Who got terminated? Employees will have, at least if they have one payment, please keep it open and available for the payment. If you want to do a balance adjustment, yes, we can do it.
Right.
If you leave that whole employee, then it's a matter.
Especially for those who turned previous year.
Previous year you can
And
leave
then
it.
they got a payment in January.
Yes.
Representative of an adjustment.
Then you treat them as an active.
Yeah.
That's right.
Yes.
Yeah.
Any employee who paid any payment in your current conversion year, please convert. Please convert. Oh, I'm sorry. I'm really sorry about that. So,
No, GB, I think that's a great strategy.
yeah. So,
Yeah.
so just to be okay.
He's either trying to scare the heck out of you or wake you up. No.
So quarterly bonus or penny payment. Sorry.
That's all right.
And we just went, but by the way, to your point, we just went to, or I went to my legacy system and said, where are all the pay, who all did we pay this year? Any payment. I don't care if it was from December, but we paid it out. It's always, constructive receipt,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
So anybody who received payment during that year, make sure you include in your conversion.
Okay, and something I do want to bring up in the slide, the last two are okay, we already talked about it. Anything which is not handled by Oracle. For example, our case, alien taxation was not a non-resident alien. We don't have that functionality in delivered Oracle. So we have to prepare W2 or 1099 with the different things. Those we need a balances. In PeopleSoft, it's a delivered functionality. I don't know, because I was running the system for the last 25 years. I don't know what the heck it is. Once you get into Oracle, oh, that is not there. Okay, then I have to dig this out, find out all the balances required for a non-resident alien taxation. What are the setups? Because that's a whole custom handling in Oracle Cloud. So if you have any non-resident alien taxation handle in your system, please make sure you have all the setups, configuration done, everything, and you have to maintain it separately. Again, we talked about the elements, limits and all, 401k retirement or social security, HSC, FSC, whatever this, all the stuff. Okay. And one of the things which I would suggest is, run some of the seeded year-end exception reports when you do the conversion itself, please. Because at the end of the day, you are going to do the exceptions in Oracle Cloud. Just run that report, that comfortable, and then make sure, because when you run the third-party quarter report, if there is an exception flagged by Oracle, it will go as an exception. So ADP will come back and say it doesn't match.
And ask, what does that mean? Because a lot of times you'll run some of the seeded reports and it'll show an error, or it'll flag something. But what is it? What does it mean? So it's important to become familiar with those seeded reports and ask your consultants, what is this? It could seem benign, but maybe it's something huge, So understand what those messages on those seeded reports might mean.
So try to familiarize and run those reports during the conversion. After each conversion, yes, you are going to see 1500 pages. Okay, forget about it. Okay, I'm getting 1500. Next time, are we getting less than that? Or are we getting more data exceptions? Because first time you'll see small errors. If you get more exception report, that you don't need to go through it. I'm just blindly saying it. Okay, last time I ran this, let's say state exception report, balance exception report is one of the seeded report. First time converted, you run it. That's fine. Even it goes to 1500 pages, keep it aside. Don't open it. That's fine. Next time you run it, if it goes again 2500, then there is some serious problem. It should at least same or it could be less, because you learn something in the second time. If it keeps on increasing, that means you are missing one element altogether. That's a key point. Okay, I missed one element mapping. Let's go back to initialization. Okay. All right. Favorites topics. Yep.
Okay, lessons learned. You know, one of the most important part of conversions is definitely discovery. If it's long and painful, grin and bear it, because it's so important. You know, you want to make sure there's all kinds of, basically you want sort of a roadmap of, you know, these are the Oracle terminologies, these are the legacy terminologies. What do I need the system to do that I'm doing out of my current system, and how does it do it? So it's not just kind of, you know, don't gloss over it. It's really an important process. And make sure you have the resources available to help you. You know, mid-year conversions or conversions in general are you know, they're time consuming,
Yes.
they're taxing. For us, we have Deloitte and we have the lovely GV, who you can see is very helpful.
And ask your year-end team to involve in the conversion, please.
Yes.
Because year-end team will say, oh, we'll look at it initially. No, we don't require. But ask them to, because they are very useful to capture what are those you are missing at the starting itself.
Well, and to that point, you want to make sure you have all the players on, you know, in the room. For example, accounting for the, you know, departments and the costing for the elements, HR, comp for the different decisions on shift differentials and different things that you're doing in the system. If you know, one example that we had was we had shift percentages in most of our regions, had flat dollar shifts in Oracle. And they were like, well, we just need to kind of lift and shift. No, we don't have time to do a comp review. We're going live in 4 months, you know, and that would require a full comp review. So we need a special setup in Oracle. So just, you know, things like that.
Yeah, that's what we talked about. Whom to ask, involving the right team, all the steps. So
Yeah.
The next one.
So training plan for the core team members, say HR or, you know, the HCM side, the payroll side. If you have folks that are specifically for the GL or the taxes, you know, for us, we're kind of stretched thin, and so a lot of it falls on payroll. But you know, you may hear, oh, you know, training will come later. Training will come later. I think it's super beneficial to train, see a demo right off the bat. You know, right from really during the discovery session, in my opinion, because then you become the more familiar you can become with the system terminologies and kind of how you're going to get to the same results that you have today. That would be fantastic. Okay, so that's kind of a little bit of what I just said. How we do it in the legacy system versus how it's, look, the whole goal is however you do it in your legacy system, the results that you're getting. So what is going to be your new process in Oracle to get those same results? At the end of the day, you don't want Bob Smith to get a totally different net pay when you go live in October.
That would be considered a failure.
That would be considered a failure. So we had a really successful go live. Given their time restraints and everything, I think it was very successful. But it was a lot of, you know, blood, sweat, and tears behind the scenes. But that's part of conversions.
Yes, and make sure that you mark down what are the new functionality or what are the process you are putting in place in the new system. Because in your old system, you don't do it in the same way, or you have customization, or you don't have a customization. In PeopleSoft, it is delivered, but in cloud, it's a customization. please make sure that what needs to be looked out.
Right. How you handle rate twos, separate assignments, things like that. Like I said, in our legacy system, we had it in one under the person. We could assign different rates, different job codes and everything. And that's, that's something that was different. The integrations, downstream integrations, we had several to benefit vendors.
Yes.
We've got it to ADP tax. Some of those you can automate. We've got it to Wells Fargo for the funding of direct deposits. Make sure that you're thinking of all that garnishments if you're outsourcing your garnishments. Make sure that integration is also, your top priority in thinking about that. Have your vendors having discussions with the right people, because, with us, with garnishments, we kind of, we were so rushed through it, we kind of got to it and said, hurry up, ADP. Well, they're like, no, we have a, 6 week. And I'm like, no, we need it in 2 weeks.
Yes.
So just make sure you involve your vendors very much so in that integration process. And,
Yes.
and whoever you might need from your IT team, obviously.
Yes. So one of the good thing, right? Even though you are in ADP, but if you go to cloud, they are going to set up all new setup.
Mm-hmm.
So please make sure that they have some timelines. Is it aligning with your project timelines? Because, so for example, garnishment, we can do it. So because of 6 weeks they need, but we have only 2 weeks.
Right.
No, we cannot do it.
But guess what? They did it in 2 weeks. Because I'm pretty annoying.
So you need somebody like Drew in your team to make sure it's happening. So
We have one.
okay, that's good.
Is that you?
No.
Oh,
I'm looking at them.
oh, okay. I know.
So and again, you are going live in October, so your year end is so quick because every year you are going to start this year end process at October,
Mm-hmm.
but you are going live in October. Okay, so do your year end setup immediately because you don't have time, because you want to process the payroll and get the check out of this on October, November, December payroll. That's our top priority. But
Yeah. Start looking at your balance reports right away. For us, we created something, also your W-2 box mapping, making sure all your codes are mapped
Yes.
correctly. Key. But for us, one of the things that we did is we created a report in OTBI, which showed their gross earnings, GTL, all the pre-tax items, and then we were able to calculate our taxable wages and make sure that it tied to the balance report. And that was, man, that's a great tool. So now I use it every quarter, or occasionally I'll, keep up with it a couple of times a quarter just to make sure we're on track. But at the end of the year, you would not believe that's what really made it possible to catch some of the things that had not been initialized. So think about a custom report that you could create that would do just that and give you, what you need. And that, think about it also. That's going to show you if you had an element that was not set up as pre-tax and it should have been. Because your balance reports are going to show what their balance is, SIT taxable, FIT taxable, Social Security, etc. But it's not going to show you how you got to it. And I like to see I'm, kind of OCD. I like to see person by person to make sure that this data is correct. I think it was a great thing to do at the end of the year, especially when you're mid-quarter or mid-year conversions.
Drew, have you thought about sharing that report on Customer Connect and how you've used it?
I have not used Customer Connect yet, but I'd be happy to.
Yeah, because those are portable, right?
Yeah.
And that sounds like it would be something I think a lot of customers would find useful.
Yeah, absolutely. And that was one of the things I was like, there's many reports, seated reports that I can use and I can tie them out. And yes, they tie to the W-2, but on a person by person level, Am I really correct? And there I was able to find, oh, look, that retirement is not supposed to be pre-tax. It's a special, special category, and it's pre-tax. So we need to, and of course you're looking at some balance adjustments and corrections, but nonetheless it'll catch it. So thank you. Yes, I will do that.
So make sure you run your audit reports and your year start and end process in conversion phase itself to make sure that all the mappings are correct and you don't get trouble in the year end or the year start. And
we
yes.
did learn that a few things, and we ran the W2 or the year end process in Oracle several times, which is great because there, you can see, okay, wait a minute, box 12, code whatever, G. It's blank. Okay, we went back. That wasn't mapped to the correct W2 box.
So when we talked about your custom year-end activities and any new custom reports, you develop it and make sure you have it available for the year-end process. And yes, and talk about this vendor timeline like on ADP, right? When you're going live with ADP, that's even though you're an ADP customer, they're treating it as different teams. You have your support engineers. Everybody is different, and so make sure their timeline lines up with your timeline and everything.
And that is the same is true for year end. Actually, you guys are going to be on ADP, so you're going to want to make sure that you get your testing windows for when you can submit your Oracle data over to them. And you can do it many, many, many times. I did it many times. I say the more the better until you get it 100%. And I will tell you that we went live mid-quarter, which was difficult, and really 5 to 6 months if you really count it up. And at the end of the year, we had 4 W2Cs out of 3,500. Yeah.
And again, your ADP year-end system is a different system for testing and all. It's not the same system you're going to do it in like a production. Their year-end system is different. Their life cycle is different.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and again, once you generated the first W2, the population of W2C is, again, it's a pain. You have to populate in a different format, altogether format. So try to avoid W2C first time, because extracting the data is also painful, and loading it into ADP is also painful. It's not easy.
Or get W2C manager. It's easy.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, that's
it's easy. I highly recommend it.
Yeah, within ADP.
Yes, W2C manager. Love it. Took me a few minutes to do the 4 W2Cs, which I don't know, you guys weren't with ADP before, but they used to have these big ASP forms, and you'd have to go. I just looked at the form and got a headache. But no, it's really easy now, and they'll file the amendment based on that. So you just basically approve and move on. Yeah.
Oops, we are on time, but 3:59. But okay, we started a little bit late, so.
Oh
questions and
wow,
answers.
GV, we were so worried we were going to talk over the 1.5 hours. Okay, so any questions for GV and myself?
If I could get your contact info.
Sure, you have.
Yeah.
So that's what. No, if you scan it, you're going to get all the information which we have, and you can scan this one. If you fill up the form, you're automatically enrolled for some raffle, so you get something, or you'll get my presentation and all our contacts list.